Welcome back, baseball fans, to this eliminating the St. Louis Cardinals video. Oh, a tough finish for the St. Louis Cardinals, who played so well throughout the early part of this year, all the way through the All-Star break, got themselves into first place, beating Pittsburgh in a best-of-7, beating the Reds in a best-of-7, playing well against the Mets as well. They had a nice season, but for some reason they couldn't get past the Cubs. They struggled against the Phillies, losing the best-of-3, falling out of the number 6 spot in the playoffs to a number 7, which just misses the playoff picture by a game. It was a unfortunate finish, very disappointing. I was really hoping that these Cardinals, who played so well, would continue into the playoffs. They would score 201 runs, giving up 188, finishing 2 games over 500. This was a good baseball team. Played a lot of tough games in a very tough division that was not very kind to them in this series, in this era. The Cardinals don't do much. After '68, there's a long dry spell until the early '80s, and when Ozzie Smith and Lonnie Smith roll into town. So they had a chance here to turn the table. They effectively knocked the Cincinnati Reds out of the playoffs. And the Pirates almost got knocked out. Pirates slipped in, Cardinals slipped out at the very end on the last day for each team. That's how tight it was. So give this team their props as we do this. Look at their stats. A .280 hitting team, a .370 ERA. I'll take that for anybody in this era. Bate McBride came on the scene, led the club in hitting .372, 7 stolen bases. Jose Ortiz was a very nice free agent find, took him off the Cubs. Smart move there. Joe Torre's batting average is not there. He hit .363 and 71, so that's not a good year for that card. But look at the home run and RBI. So he did contribute mightily in the power category. Probably would have hit more than the 24 home runs had we played a full season. He hit 24 home runs and drove in 137 and 71. Simmons' average is down to .267 here for a 300 hitter, but plenty of power. Same with Reggie Smith. So your switch hitters slumped at a bad time. But right between the switch hitters is the biggest problem I see. It's Lou Brock. Lou Brock just hit .259, didn't hit a home run, only stole 13 bases. He's a double-A stealer, could have been a triple-A stealer. This is his best year, the on-base percentage year. Only had an on-base of .312. Runs scored for your leadoff hitter, 24. Reggie Smith had 25, Torrey 22, McBride 22, Simmons 20. So it's not a big... You know, some say that Lou Brock helped Joe Torre get that MVP in '71. Because 137 RBI, you're driving in Lou Brock half the time. But in this particular replay, it fell short. Bill Sadakis' scary home runs against lefties didn't really translate. And then as far as the pitching, they brought in Sonny Siebert from Boston, got to the All-Star game, but then after the All-Star game, got into a pitching funk. He was 6-2, then he dropped his last 3 starts to finish 6-5. Still had a quality earned run average and whip. Bob Gibson was, fine, but not as good as we thought he would be. 8-4 is good, but a .367 ERA and a .138 whip is not that great. We appreciate the 6 complete games. Al Hrabosky, another all-star who faded. 9 saves. Again, the whole Cardinal team struggled getting to that finish line as a front runner. Could not finish the job. And Hrabosky got knocked around at the end there with a .450 ERA. And unfortunately, Chris Short falls under the sword, takes the blame for the final start of the year for the Cardinals. Could not get out of the second inning. Gave up the 4 runs in the first inning plus 4 batters and was replaced in an attempt to win the game, and he had a bad season altogether. He actually was a Philly and helped the Phillies get to the playoffs. So while former Cardinal Steve Carlton beat him, the Philly. So that is even more painful for the Cardinals to take on. Really shame. Yeah, it's I had a lot of fun playing this Cardinal team this year. Had been pretty indifferent to them previously. Let's take a look at their card stack here and see who's coming and going. And I don't know, I think we know Torrey is going to be a huge drop. But otherwise, they do have nice pieces here. And but you have to understand that the Reds are probably going to get a whole lot better again next year when Joe Morgan comes to town. The Pirates are the Pirates. And the Cubs, they couldn't get past the Cubs. So let's take a look at these 8 Cardinals here and see what the split is. Looking for a 7-7-7-5 split. Hitters to pitchers, and we have that. So we have balance. So they're not really short hitters or pitchers. They can go into the off-season even keel. 2 switch hitting catchers is a luxury. Sadaka's played a lot of first base and DH in the past year. So they could get a conventional first baseman. They do have some infielders. You have Sizemore at second. And then Tyson can play second or short, but they used Dwayne Anderson because of his ability to hit righties very well. His defense was terrible. But a righty who was good against right-handed pitching, even though he had 267. And 2/3 of an outfield, these guys can play every day. McBride, and it's Reggie Smith. They took a Boston card for a couple more years, but the St. Louis card looks pretty much like it anyway. Also, Reggie Smith did play center, first, and right field this year. He was used all over the place, so very versatile for Reggie Smith. The 5 pitchers, great news that even late in his career, Bob Gibson's pretty spectacular, folks. I don't know how old he is in 72, but this card is outstanding. It didn't play outstanding, it played okay. But it's great to have this starter 9 card for 1 more year. And then after that, he'll still pitch for another few years. Won't be quite as good. But this is a heck of a good, considering, he wasn't that great in 70 or 71, but to come back in 72 and put this season together is really great fortune for these Cardinals. This was the rookie Scipio Spinks who did a job in the 3 spot, in the 3 hole, behind Siebert and Gibson. Starter 7, nice little performance here in a small sample. They held on to Chuck Taylor. He had actually moved on to the Expos by then, but they kept him with a 2.17 ERA. And 2 lefties. You have Steve Barber. It was good to get Grabowski some help from the left side. Barber, more of the get the lefties out kind of guy. And Grabowski, the complete closer, gets everybody out. You could actually bump up Grabowski to his 75 card, which is probably his best overall season. That would be a luxury to do that. That would waste a draft pick just to improve a player. But, it's looking pretty good. It's pretty solid here. Nothing looks out of line. 7 hitters, 5 pitchers. Now let's take a look and see what the Cardinals do with the 8 guys from 71. They have to keep, waive, retire, or trade. Alright, let's take a look at the Cardinals, the 8 Cardinals here, and boy, we're going to have some big names coming up. Lou Brock, the 71 card, it let us down this past year. We really liked it because of his ability to get on base more with the walk. He had 76 walks, so you look in the timeline over his long career, it was one of the top seasons of drawing walks, a 385 on base, which pushed his OPS to over 800. That's why we got the card. It didn't translate. You saw the stats earlier. He had a 259 season, could not get up to a 360 on base, and that kind of hurt the Cardinals a little bit in their quest to get to the playoffs. So, fear not, though. We still have the base-stealing phenom. Has 118 stolen bases on the horizon if you want to do it, with a 306 batting average. So it's just a question of which Lou Brock you want. When you have a guy who's so consistent like that, the good news is if you're inflexible in other seasons where guys are only good in one of the 4 years, you wait and just let Lou Brock fill in the year that you have a shortage. So you take Brock in either 72, 3, 4, or 5. You don't really care too much. He's very consistent a player. And that is very advantageous when you're drafting for teams like this. The next guy, Bob Berta. Berta, a pinch hitter. His career ended before he could have been a designated hitter. I wonder if he could have hung around another year or two. But his stick fell off in 72. We could give him waivers with Boston, though if his card exists, I'm not sure Strat printed it. Let's take a look. If Berta's Boston card exists, we'll look in their extra players. He didn't make it, so he is retired. Next player, Don Hahn. He actually was defensive help, or in a platoon possibly with McBride, or offering defense behind Lou Brock. Didn't offer a lot with his stick. Actually was a Met, good defensive player, outfielder for the Mets as well. Played for the Mets, did play for the Cardinals and Padres at the end here. 71 season we used. The numbers aren't good, but in a platoon, he did pretty well against lefties. He's not going to get waivers in 72 with that amount of plate appearances. So it's either retirement or you keep him. And frankly, he is just a guy. As I like to say, I'm going to retire him. I don't like to do that, but he can always come out of retirement in either 73 or 74. So we're going to retire Hahn because we have a little bit of a cushion. I talked earlier in these eliminations that we only want to have 64 total, and we'll show you at the end of this video where we're at, and we're under par, I should say, so we're in good shape. I can push waiver guys in retirement if I need to. Obviously, if a guy doesn't play anymore, then he doesn't play anymore. You don't have that flexibility, and you lose guys in your waiver pool or your keeper pool if you have a season where a ton of league guys all got old at the same time, have to retire. Next player, Jose Ortiz as a pinch hitter, and this might be another retirement. 69 to 71, so I'm done right here. See, I can conclude the analysis. He has to retire. He doesn't play anymore. But we'll take a peek at the guy. Just take a look at him here for the final time. He was a Cub, but he did have this great year in 71 as a 295 pinch hitter, 26 for 88. Played across town as well. So Jose Ortiz helped out the Cardinals. It wasn't the first time a Cub outfielder went to the Cardinals and helped out. Lou Brock, which we just saw a few minutes ago. So Jose Ortiz is also retired. Not a good start at all here for St. Louis, and we're gonna, oh boy, we're gonna take a nice little drop here too. It's Joe Torre time. This is not the day that Joe Torre was looking forward to at all. It's the end of the 71 card. They're gonna need the manager stuff here, or the hitter stuff. No, they're giving me hitter stuff. So finally, after 4 years, we have to bid farewell to the amazing MVP performance and take one more look at it. 230 hits, 137 RBIs, 363 average. I'm really mostly impressed with the RBIs because he had more RBIs than Stargell or Aaron. And I think that had a lot to do, in addition to the average, 2/3 of the Triple Crown to getting the MVP. When you consider he had half as many home runs as Stargell or Aaron. So, yeah, 137. And this is why I mentioned earlier about Lou Brock scoring, him driving in Lou Brock so many times. Now, you have some nice years coming up for the Cardinals and Mets. Position's going to be very important. He'll go to first base. I mentioned, when you looked at the cards earlier, they don't have a true first baseman. They have Sadakis there. So you could swing him over to first base this off season You see, playing exclusively at third base really helped his cause. Concentrating on one position, not putting the shin guards on, or not playing catcher really helped this guy. And looking at this a little closelier, I thought he caught a little bit later on for the Mets, but no, he did not. According to this, it says 5, 3, and H. I don't see the 2 there for catcher, but we got 72. You know, he's Tory, and he'll be a keeper for the Cardinals. No reason to rush him out of town. All right, now we go to the pitchers. Sonny Siebert, and boy, I tell you, I had a lot of fun with this guy with his Red Sox years. He is one of the big reasons why the Red Sox were very successful for me from 69 and 70 when they would have been behind Baltimore. They actually won the division once or twice. And Siebert was a big reason. He was solid. Him and Tion on Boston was really solid pitching here with these cards. The good news is this 72 Boston card is still available to the Cardinals because the trade's already been made. You see, he ends up with the Cardinals in 74 and has a decent year as well. So, yeah, he's a keeper. The ability to pitch in 3 days rest and to pitch as well as he did is probably over with. But he's still probably now a number 3 or number 4 starter. This team could use a guy like Steve Carlton. They could use a solid lefty between Gibson, Siebert, and Spinks, that rookie. The next guy filled in that role, and that is Chris Short. Unfortunately, he'll be remembered for his bad finish. He had a long career here with the Phillies, starting in '59 and a year with Milwaukee. And he just got the Phillies into the playoffs by his loss in that Game 3 we just played. So, 72 and 73. Okay, so here's a problem again, is that Strat made his card in 73, but that won't get you waivers. You have to have a card in year 1. 23 innings for the Phillies in 72. I doubt that exists. We'll take a peek. Phillies. Chris Short. Not around. That's a retirement. Again, he probably will come out of retirement with that 75 card because, you know, everybody's always looking for left-handed pitching when it comes time for the draft. And the last player is Al Santorini. From 68 to 73. Padre and Cardinal, I believe. A brave Padre expansion player, gets to the Cardinals in 71, has the nice season we just had. 3.78 ERA. Strat made this 88 innings card. So in 72, gives you some more innings. ERA's over 4. You could keep him. Wouldn't hurt. You could be more ambitious and put him on waivers though. This card should exist. Let's go check it out. Do we have a Santorini card that I can put on waivers? The answer is yes. I could keep him, but folks, like I said, he's right-handed and he's a reliever. Actually, he's a starter relief. But I got enough righty starters. I got Gibson, Siebert, and Spinks. So he'll fall back into the same role he was in as long man, which is fine. In a shortage of keepers, you could keep him. You know, you know what? His whip's not too bad. Let's just keep him. He's a Cardinal property. A long man's a long man. You know, it's like the easiest spot on the roster to fill, though. It doesn't have a lot of value. That's the 8th pitcher. It's your top starters, your closer, and work your way up to long man. The long man usually pitches the fewest innings, as the starters usually go deep into games and that sort of thing, with an 8-man pitching staff. Uh, you know, and I think Santorini, we saw the stats, he was fewest innings pitched by any reliever on this team. But he's a Cardinal, and he's good enough to be a keeper. So that means they're trying to keep 4. And I know we see the 4 retirements here, but this is easily fixable because there's going to be an abundance of wavered players. And so the Cardinals will move a couple of these retired guys for wavered guys. There won't be any compensation involved because none of the players are being kept. So the Cardinals won't have to pay for that, which is fortunate. So if this was where we we have now 20 teams eliminated because we have the playoff field left. And we're in really good shape now. So here is the math to consider. 20 teams have been eliminated, and everybody has to keep 4 wave 2 and retire 2. And so we look at these two numbers. This is the projection 80, 40, 40. And right now I'm keeping 84. I'm waiving 42. And I'm only retiring 34. So you can say I'm 6 under par. I've got 6 guys who are in either category here or here that need to end up here in the retirement list, which is great. They're retiring quality players, so you know that retired list will get looked at in the draft. It's a cheap way to fill a roster spot. So that's it for eliminating the St. Louis Cardinals. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.